Looks like it's again, for those of you that are just joining, you can mute yourself using the little microphone option in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Raul, I think, do you have a question, or did you mistakenly push the little hands up? Okay, your hand is up, so I just wanted to make sure if you had a question, I could answer it. Okay, I am going to reveal myself, show you the voice behind the icon. So hi, everyone. My name is Amber Kerwin. I work for the city of Tucson, and I'm going to be walking through this presentation with you. I am representing our team that has worked together to put together this grant program. I'm not going to keep my camera on just because it sometimes causes issues with the connectivity. So I'm going to toggle off, but I wanted the opportunity to just say hi to everybody in this virtual world. And thank you so much for joining us today. So camera off and let's get started. So thank you so much for joining us. It's good to see so many people interested in the options or opportunities rather that are going to be provided through this program. So this is the City of Tucson, ARPA. So ARPA is the American Rescue Plan Act Community Partnership Grants Program. So we're going to talk on the specifics related to this program. But first, let's talk on what we're going to do today. So just to be clear, for today's workshop, we're not going to be answering any questions about whether a certain project or program is eligible. You can certainly ask those questions. We encourage you to ask those questions, but do so by submitting an email to our partner grants at TUCSON'S.gov email address. We have folks that are staffing that email account and can respond back to you if you have questions specific to the program, project, or service that you're contemplating providing through this grant program. Also, we have a lot of content to go through today. I am hopeful that we have time at the end of the presentation for questions. And it is my preference that if you could save your questions till the end of the program, that would be ideal. If we don't get time, there is the option, and there's always the option, to submit questions to the link that's provided in this PowerPoint right here. Jasmine, who's helping me, is going to post that same link in our chat session so that you don't have to enter it in. You can just click on it and submit questions. And what this is going to do is your questions are going to help us build our frequently asked questions so that we can provide responses back not only to you, but also to all of those who are interested in this grant program. So just know that your questions will be made public and the responses will be public as well. And there comes that link. Thank you, Jasmine. But again, if it's questions that don't apply to the general audience here, then certainly just send us an email directly to the partner grants at TUCSON'S.gov and we'll get back to you. So our agenda for today, we're going to talk about what is the Community Partner Grant Program, what are the funding opportunities under that program, who is eligible, what are the requirements, what is the application process, what are the requirements upon grant award, and what support is available, both as you navigate through this application process, but then also if you end up being awarded a grant, what support is available to you upon grant award and through the continuation of your grant funded program. So that's our agenda today. So let's get to it. So the first question, what is the Community Partnership Grant Program? So I'm going to start really big and then I'm going to drill down because I'm a big believer in giving the full background because it gives context as to what we're doing, why we're doing it. So the Community Partner Grant Program is part of the American Rescue Plan Act. So the American Rescue Plan Act was signed into law on March 11th, 2021. And it made funding available throughout the nation to assist in our nation's recovery from the pandemic. And within that act, there was a specific allocation, $350 billion, to help state, territorial, and local governments respond to the pandemic. So because everything government has to have an acronym, this is the SLFRF fund, and that is the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. I've heard some start calling it the Slurfee program. So that fund made available to the city almost $136 million over 4 years. So if you're interested, there's a link within here, and this PowerPoint will also be made available on our website so that you can access the content within. But if you're interested in more specifics on the state and local fiscal recovery fund, you can get that information at the link provided here. And really, that funding is made available, as mentioned, to assist in recovery with the expectation that funding provided to local, state, and tribal governments be obligated by December 31st, 2024. So that's kind of the big picture. So specifically, the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund allows local, tribal, state entities to use the funding to support 4 primary activities. So one of them is supporting urgent COVID-19 response efforts to both decrease the spread of the virus and bring the pandemic under control, to replace lost revenue and help retain jobs, to support immediate economic stabilization for households and businesses, and to address the systemic public health and economic challenges that have contributed to the unequal impact of the pandemic. So those are the 4 broad categories. Now, in addition to that, the federal government has really messaged that they want this funding to be used in consideration of addressing issues of equity. So recognizing that the pandemic has impacted different communities in different ways. So the Treasury has advised that all recipients of these funds really need to approach the distribution and use of these funds with an equity strategy in mind to really prioritize both the economic and racial equity as a goal. So in accordance with that, the city of Tucson is going to be applying an equity-centered approach to distributing ARPA funds. And you'll learn a little bit more as to what that means as we discuss how we're going to be evaluating applications. But as part of both the application process and if you receive a grant award, we're going to want to know and understand the intention of your work, who you're supporting, and we're also going to want to collect data as you implement your program to get a broader sense of who we're impacting through these programs, services, and projects. So on top of both the federal requirements and the desire to approach this through an equity lens, the City of Tucson's mayor and council have put in place a 4-year funding framework. So they have said, based on much deliberation, how we're going to spend and how we're going to invest this money in our community. So this is that framework. They have prioritized that they'd like to invest in relief for families, essential and frontline workers, and small businesses. So $9.9 million over 4 years has been allocated to that. There's going to be community reinvestment and recovery, which includes focus areas like parks, arts, and culture. We're looking at workforce development as well as youth development, investment in digital literacy and access, including cybersecurity initiatives, promoting affordable and stable housing, and investment in the City of Tucson organization. And that's really under the umbrella of revenue recovery. So the federal government has recognized that the pandemic has had impacts on local state governments that has impacted our revenue recovery. And in order to retain jobs, to be able to continue to provide services, we are permitted to use those funds to help shore those efforts up. So this is the broad framework. Within this broad framework, mayor and council have said some of these we are going to deliver by way of community partners, and that's where you all come in. Some of them are going to be activities that the city is going to take on, manage, implement. So let's talk more on the piece where you come in, which is the community partner funding. So, and just to kind of encapsulate all of that, here's a quote by Mayor Romero. She said that TUCSO'N'S have let us know loud and clear that transformative change is wanted and needed as we work to build back better. We have a unique opportunity to focus on equity while strategically partnering with organizations and business to invest in programs, services, and infrastructure that will make a meaningful difference in the quality of life for every Tucsonan. So it's really emphasizing the desire to strategically partner with you all to implement and use these federal resources to address the issues and impacts of the pandemic within the city. So what are the funding opportunities? So as it relates to the community partner grants, $33.8 million has been allocated over 4 years from this ARPA state and local fiscal recovery fund to go towards community partner grants. In this first year, $10.1 million is being made available in grant opportunities. So future year funding is going to be made available within those same categories. And where there is funding allocations remaining in future years, we are either going to, in instances where a year one grantee has received funds and they need additional funding for continuation of services and they've been satisfactorily performing, then we will be putting grant funds towards continuation of those grant opportunities. And then where there are allocations remaining and there are no year one providers that are providing the services to use the funds, we're going to go through another application round. And that application round is going to open up about this time next year. So know that this is kind of a phase one process, and there's going to be a phase two as we move into the future year funding that's been allocated. So key thing is if you haven't, definitely register your email with us so that you can receive updates as it relates to the program. And you can register that email by way of the website. It's a quick, easy process, and then you'll get regular updates as it relates both to this grant funding phase as well as future phases. So what are the categories? So Mayor and Council, as previously outlined, have outlined some categories where they want to invest funding. Of those categories, 4 of them have specific opportunities for the community partner grants. So the first one is the relief for families, essential and frontline workers and small businesses, community reinvestment and recovery, including parks, arts and culture, workforce and youth development, and promoting affordable and stable housing. And within each of those categories are specific programs where Mayor and Council, the city, is looking for assistance in terms of developing and deploying programs. And we'll get into that shortly, right here actually now. So the first one, and these definitions are also available on our webpage. So the funding programs that are available under relief for families, essential and frontline workers and small businesses include partnership for citywide volunteer management network. And you'll see on there, we're providing both the year one allocation that's available under this current grant cycle and the total amount that is available over the 4 years. So in the case of this one, it's $50,000 in year one, $200,000 over 4 years. And the intent of this program is to create just really a single resource network for information, coordination, and or access to all volunteer services available within the city. You will notice with these descriptions as we go through, we've provided a degree of detail, but we are refraining from being too prescriptive in terms of how we would define it entirely, because we're looking to you as those that are within our community and know best where need is and where what programs are needed to help us better define, hey, what would be a much needed, impactful program within this area. So we're keeping it somewhat open so that you can help us define that by way of your application submittals. The next is a small and legacy business revolving microloan program. So this is one of the larger ones where in the first year there's 1.25 million that's going to be made available with a total of 3.25 million over 4 years. And really what this is, and you'll see that we have slightly modified this description because by way of some of the emails that we were receiving, we realized that maybe it wasn't being interpreted consistent with what our intent was. And the intent is that we are really looking for somebody to come in within the community, a community partner, to help us develop and implement this program and provide loans, microloans, by way of this funding source. So the city is not providing direct loans to individuals. Rather, we are looking for a partner to help us develop, implement, and run that program and distribute these funds. So I just wanted to clarify that piece. Within this same category are small business programs. So 1 million in year one, 2.83 million over 4 years. And again, this is a similar dynamic where we are looking for a partner to help us, to come in and really help us develop the small business program and work on awarding those funds to eligible recipients. So not a direct funding program through the city to those recipients, but rather let's bring a partner on to help us do this. The other is energy retrofits for homes and businesses. So that's 500,000 in year one, 2.4 million over 4 years. And again, to find a partner to develop and implement a program to use these grant funds to provide financial support for energy retrofit programs for homes and businesses. So now we're moving on to the next category of funding. So this is under the community reinvestment and recovery, including parks, arts, and culture. What we're looking for within here is community health and safety programming. So this is one of the larger funding allocations here as well, 3.6 million in year one with a total of 12.3 million over 4 years. And this one's one of the broader categories where we're looking for partners to provide programs and services to those that have been impacted by COVID, and providing overall support services, community engagement activities, resources to facilitate programs that target high-risk populations and/or reduce violence. And you'll see on there that it can include infrastructure investment for program support, low barrier ADA and accessible programs and wellness programs. So that one's fairly broad. The next one is support for arts and culture. That's going to be 650,000 in year one with 1.55 million over 4 years. It's really looking for partners to come in to help implement new arts and culture programming and projects or expand on existing programming and projects. Now we're moving on to the third category, which is our workforce and youth development. So our youth workforce development and skill building, we have 250,000 available in year one with 4 million over 4 years. And the intent of this program is to provide tools and resources for workforce development and skill building for our youth. So specifically education programs, training, creation of job pipelines, and really closing the skill gap within our community. The other is focused on city trade and skill development programming. So as a city, much like a lot of employers out there, we've really struggled. Just a reminder, yeah, if you could hear. So the city, like a lot of employers out there, is really struggling to find skilled individuals to fill some of our job classifications. So really working with the city to help develop a city trade and skill development program. So in the same category, we have another youth programming. So within this area, it's not necessarily specific to skill development, but it's to create programming with high priority focus on teens to get them involved in recreation, fitness, volunteer efforts, art and cultural opportunities through non-traditional programs. And then the last program within this category is a transitional workforce development focused on both veterans and youth. So 150,000 in year one, 600,000 over 4 years. And it's to create direct job path programs for veterans and youth. With that, we're on to our last category, which is our promoting affordable and stable housing. We're looking for partnership in a housing cooperative development fund for $1 million in year one, $4 million over 4 years. And intent of the program is to create housing trust funds established by city, county, or state governments that receive ongoing dedicated sources of public funding to support the preservation and production of affordable housing and increase opportunities for families and individuals to access decent, affordable homes. We also have our small scale senior and youth housing for $500,000 in year one, $2 million over 4 years, with an intent to create transitional housing programs with a focus on seniors and youth. And then the last two programs within this category are a housing resource connection program with wraparound services. So an intent to provide kind of that one-stop shop to provide immediate support to persons in need of affordable housing. And that has $250,000 in year one and $1 million over 4 years. The last is a manufactured housing rehabilitation replacement program. The intent of this program is to acquire, rehabilitate, with an ultimate goal to sell manufactured housing to low to moderate income families. And that's $500,000 in year one, $1.5 million over 4 years. So that concludes a really quick run through of the categories and the programs within where we have funding opportunities, grant funding opportunities. And again, that information, those definitions, the allocation amounts are all available on the website. If you have any questions as to whether the nonprofit or business that you work with and the programs you're thinking of fit within those categories, just shoot us an email and we'll work with you. So who is eligible? So eligibility, who can apply? Nonprofits can apply, businesses can apply. And just to clarify, based on what I'd said previously, individuals are not eligible to apply. Individuals will ultimately be the beneficiary of some of these programs that are developed through you as our community grant partners, but individuals are not eligible to apply for these grants. The criteria, additional criteria, is that the majority of the population served must be within City of Tucson or City of South Tucson limits. You have to be in good standing with the federal government and registered via sam.gov. And if you're not registered via sam.gov, it's a very easy process. You just go to sam.gov and it'll walk you through. All organizations that we work with, according to ARPA criteria, have to have in place or soon to be in place an anti-discrimination policy as well as a financial policy. And organizations also need to be aware that if the funding that you receive from the city results in your organization receiving in aggregate $750,000 or more on an annual basis, you are subject to the single audit requirement. So if you have questions as to what that means, you can email us. There's a lot of information available on the internet by way of federal government, but send us a quick note if you don't know what that means and we can give you some follow-on information. And as part of the award process, we're going to be conducting a risk assessment of all eligible organizations. And that risk assessment is really going to be evaluating prior experience in managing federal funds, any previous audits, any policies and procedures that your organization has, just to verify that you're in a good place to be able to deliver on the proposed program, project, or service. What are the requirements? More requirements. So we talked on eligibility. What are the requirements of the actual programs or projects? So the general requirements are, in order to be eligible for a grant award, you need to submit a complete application requiring or including all required attachments. And that's going to be done via our Zoom Grants portal. And that Zoom Grants portal is available on the website. In order to submit a grant, or I'm sorry, an application, you have to register as a Zoom Grants user. So if you go to that link on our website, it'll walk you through that process. The grant should not exceed the funding available within the program allocation. So we have not made a determination, or we have not limited, well, let me back up. So if a grant allocation within the category programmatic area is $1 million, we could potentially award the full $1 million to one grant recipient, or we could potentially award a number of smaller grants to recipients. It all depends on the proposals that we're getting, and how they're ranked, evaluated as to the funding amount determination. And you will be asked by way of the application, certainly what your grant request is for, but also if you would entertain or consider a partial award. So be sure to answer that within the application. So the proposed I'm sorry, I skipped one. Administrative and overhead costs are limited to 10% of the total grant. And the proposed program or project that you're submitting has to align with the ARPA, the state local fiscal recovery fund eligible uses. So as a reminder, those were those 4 criteria that were outlined very early on in the PowerPoint. They have to fall within one of the previously outlined programmatic areas. So we talked through what the programmatic areas were. And they have to support one or more of mayor and council's outlined goals. So those are what we're going to talk on next. And the project or program must meet or deliver on the application objectives and have obligated or used the full grant 1 year from date of award. So once you get the dollars, you have a year to work towards implementation, delivery of project or program. Let's talk on mayor and council requirements. So mayor and council have said that for the programs within the categories that we outlined, they would like to see applications that support the following goals. So these are the goals that have been outlined by mayor and council. Recovery for all, starting with communities that were hardest hit. So recognizing that COVID has had a disproportionate impact on different sectors of our community. Invest funds with an eye toward long-term investments to address long-standing inequities. Strategic partnerships with Pima County and Pima County school districts to expand services to the community. They want to partner with grassroots networks to connect with hard-to-reach communities. Looking for new ideas and solutions, as well as replicating and building on proven success models that are out there and that are already working. Data-driven and evidence-based investments that will create the backbone of Tucson's relief and recovery, and transformative strategic investments aimed at relief and a resilient recovery for the hardest hit communities. So again, that kind of speaks to our equity piece. So those are the requirements. So be sure as you're developing your program, your grant applications, that you're really keeping in mind, all right, is this something that's really going to satisfy one or more of these goals, as well as align with the 4 federal requirements that were previously outlined? So what's the application process? So the application did open this past Monday. There's not necessarily an application close date. We're going to be leaving it open, but know that the first application review is going to be occurring on January 19th. So that means that you should have your application submitted by January 18th at 11:59 p.m. right before the stroke of midnight, to be eligible for consideration in that first round of review. And know that it is possible that that first round of review might result in awards that will exhaust funding in all categories for this grant cycle. It's also possible that they may not. So we will be providing updates after we've gone through this first process to notify everyone what remains in categories, and we'll be going through a second review process. So just know that even though the application is still going to be posted and available on January 19th or January 20th, you will have missed the deadline for the first review cycle. So a really important date is getting that application in by January 18th to have priority consideration. And the applications are going to be evaluated by 3 separate teams, and they're going to be scored on the basis of really 4 different areas. So the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to receive those applications and we're going to look at them to be sure that it meets both the City of Tucson and really the ARPA related requirements that we outlined. And that's simply a pass-fail. If your application fails to meet those requirements, we will be notifying you prior to, as quickly as possible, that it has failed, so you have the opportunity to reevaluate and, if possible, adjust or amend so that the proposal does align with the requirements. So if you get those proposals in sooner, we'll be able to get back to you sooner to let you know, hey, maybe this one missed the mark, and here's where it's not in alignment, so that you can reevaluate and resubmit. Once it does pass that first stage review, that it's been determined to be in compliance with ARPA parameters and mayor and council parameters, we're going to have a team that's going to evaluate it on the basis of equity. And that score is going to be worth 40% of the total score. So you'll see within the application, there's going to be a number of questions related to what are the communities that you're targeting your program to? How are you outreaching to those communities to make sure that you're reaching some of those hard to get individuals who may be in need of assistance, but just aren't maybe as accessible. The other piece is going to be on viability. So based on your experience, based on the program that you're proposing, is this something that we have confidence is going to be able to be implemented and deployed and to have the impact that you're saying it will within the community? And then the other piece is innovation. So that's speaking again to Mayor and Council's desire to let's get creative with this. Let's find ways to get services to those most in need and those disproportionately impacted by this pandemic. So it'll go through that scoring process. The scores are going to be tabulated and award determinations will be made with provisional award notifications going out by February 2nd, 2022. Now it's provisional because as part of the initial process, we're going to reach out to you in February to go through and discuss risk assessment so that we can finalize our evaluation and make a final award determination. And then we're going to work with you to set up financial participation agreements and memorandums of understanding. So just fancy ways of really saying we're going to contract with you to provide the services, programs, projects that you've proposed within your grant application. So how do you apply? As mentioned, there's the Zoom Grants link application that's available on the city's website. Again, you do have to register within Zoom Grants to be able to access the grant application. And below you'll see that there's direct application link in both English and Spanish. So we've provided website content and the application in both English and Spanish. We've also set up support within the city to be able to respond to any phone calls, any emails that are in both English and Spanish. So the components of the application, and some of you have probably already been in there to see, but the application is going to include a summary section. We're going to ask you about program details. We're going to ask you about program impact. We're going to ask about what your budget is that you're proposing, both in total, but then what is that line item detail as to the dollars that you're requesting and what it's going to go towards. We're going to ask you about the goals that you've outlined or hope to achieve through the program, as well as specifics related to the demographics that your program is going to be targeting. So the documents, the last page on there is a documents page where a 501c3, if you're a registered 501c3 nonprofit, you can upload your determination letter. If you're a business, your business license or EIN number, and also letters of support. that are optional. And I do want to clarify on here, because this was a last-minute adjustment based on some fairly intensive conversation within the city, is initially we were, for the nonprofits, we were requiring a nonprofit to have a 501c3 designation. We got some feedback from the community, and we reevaluated that and recognized that that is potentially a barrier to some of our grassroots nonprofit organizations, and we have removed that requirement. So it is not a requirement for our nonprofits to have a 501c3 designation. And that's why you'll see on here that it says optional, and both the web page as well as the application are being updated. So thanks for that community input. It's been helpful in terms of making sure that we're rolling out a program that makes sense really for our entire community. The requirements upon award, if you are a recipient of one of our grants, here's what we're going to expect, or here's what's going to happen. So as mentioned, you'll get a provisional notification that you have been provisionally accepted or awarded a grant. We're going to conduct a risk assessment. That risk assessment is going to evaluate financial stability, the management systems you have in place, what's your history of performance on programs or services, and reports and findings from any audits. So if that risk assessment ends up where it check all the boxes, then we're going to work with you on developing, as mentioned, the memorandum of understanding and a financial participation agreement. And that's going to outline the specifics related to how the funding process is going to occur, as well as reporting requirements. And then ARPA language, and ARPA includes language that may require the grant recipients, as we discussed, to meet additional financial compliance guidelines if thresholds are met. So that again goes to, if this grant award forces your organization over that $750,000 federal grant limit, then you may be subject to the single audit requirement. Again, if you have questions on that, just shoot us an email and we can give you more background and information on what that means. In terms of monitoring and reporting, monitoring is going to be on a quarterly basis. So the reporting is both a financial reporting on a quarterly basis at a minimum. So we're looking to be as flexible as possible with our partners, and recognize that some partners in terms of cash flow may not be able to carry the expenditures associated with a program for a full quarter. So it may be that your organization says, hey, I want to submit my financial reporting, which is really your reimbursement request, on a monthly basis, on a more frequent basis, so that you can get that reimbursement sooner rather than later. That's definitely going to be allowable, but financial reporting must occur at least quarterly. And those reporting periods are outlined below. There's also going to be program and metric reporting. So the program and metric reporting is really going to be monitoring based on the goals and objectives that you outlined as part of your grant application. Are you trending to meet those? So the reporting requirements will be tailored specific to your grant application, and being monitored consistent with what are you doing what you said you were going to do. And the same reporting periods and deadlines apply. And all of that reporting, I just remembered something we left off of this slide. All of that reporting is going to be happening by way of Zoom grants. So it'll all get input into that same system so that our staff can review it and move forward. So support available. We are having informational workshops. That's why you're here. You're here in one of our first informational workshops. So that's today, December 16th. There's going to be another follow-up one on Tuesday at 10 a.m. And as mentioned, this session will be recorded. The session on December 21st will be recorded and will be posted and available on the website. So you can go back, you can view it. Anybody that wasn't able to be here can go back and review the session. We'll also post the PowerPoint on the website so that you can refer to any of the links or information that we've reviewed today. Application submission support is available by appointment. So we are providing to those that might have challenges with navigating Zoom grants and getting information in to set up an appointment to meet with us, and we will assist with that. We can't help you develop a program proposal, but we can certainly help you get an application entered into the system so that it is ready and available for evaluation and review. And those appointments, as mentioned, those appointments will be available, or those support sessions will be available by appointment and will be in person. So you can schedule those appointments by calling our hotline number. And our hotline number is actually right below. We have the resource phone line with folks that are knowledgeable on this program. The phone number is 791-2670. And again, that's in both English and Spanish. There's support for both. We have the website that I've mentioned multiple times that has a lot of this information on the website. And as previously mentioned, you can always contact us via our email, partnergrants@TUCSON'S.gov. It is our goal to get back to you within a day. So know that we have people monitoring that, and we're trying to turn around requests for information as quickly as we possibly can. And then, as discussed, we're developing frequently asked questions. So you can help us in terms of developing that content by submitting your questions via the link provided below. And again, those questions will be made public, as well as will the responses, so that it helps everybody in terms of developing their understanding of the program. And then those responses will be posted and available on the website. And then one of the larger things, which really almost looks like a footnote on here, but I think it's a really cool thing that we're doing, is for those organizations that need assistance. If you are a grant recipient and you need assistance as it relates to the accounting, the reporting aspects of this, the city is prepared to provide you with contracted support to meet those reporting transactional needs, as well as providing a degree of background expertise as it relates to ARPA eligibility. So that's going to be a resource that is available to those of you that need it. It will not be a cost that comes out of your grant award. It will be funded outside of that. So it's a resource that will be available. So with that, we have 15 minutes left. I think I've been seeing some questions, it looks like, pop up in the chat. Johanna, have you been responding to those as we've been talking, or are those ones that we want to go through? Is Johanna out there?
It looks like Johanna had to step away.
Okay.
But there are some questions that she's answered and some questions she has not. So I will ask the questions that have not yet been answered. So the first one I see is there a definition of small scale? And I believe this is in relation to the program Small Scale Senior/Youth Housing.
That is an excellent question. I do not have a response for you on that right now, but I will get a definition for that and we can respond back.
I'm marking that one for response later. There are two questions about definition of youth. So if there's an age bracket related to that.
There is not. So youth traditionally are 18 and under. You will notice on one of the program definitions that there was a request or an emphasis rather on our teenage youth, but youth broadly would be 18 and under, with the exception of the area where we specifically focused it on teenage youth. Teenage youth would be between the ages of 13 and 18. Great question.
One of those questions was specifically related to the workforce development category. if that youth definition would also include up to 24 years old.
I would say it would not. The youth would be up to 18.
And the next question I see is, can you clarify how you are using the term investment? It doesn't mean monetary investment, it means programming, correct?
Let me go back. I'm trying to remember the context or slide that was on. Slide 25.
Slide 25.
Thank you. All right, let me go back. Let me see if I can get my slides to scroll. It looks like my system's locked up. I'm going to quit sharing really quick, and then I'm going to reshare again. 1 minute. Slide 25. Slide 25 is the application process, but let me look through really quickly. I just want to make sure that I'm answering the question relevant to.
So maybe 24, maybe slide 24.
I think, was it this? All right, 1 minute. Was it this? Was it this slide?
Hi, sorry, this is Vicky.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Vicky.
Yes, so there was a question about, I think it's maybe the next slide,
Okay, let's see.
kind of the target areas. Oh, maybe one more. Oh yeah, I think a couple more actually.
Okay, let's go back really quick. That's the next. It's not this one. There's investment here, not that one.
I think a couple more. Sorry.
No worries.
Because I think we're on slide 15 now. I think it's like, I think it was 25.
Is it this one? Can include infrastructure investment for program support?
So it was the one that talked about, you know, we wanted these certain target areas, like invest funds in programs that, I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly.
Yeah,
but
I know.
There was several
I know
areas that you're interested in.
I think it's this one. So it's the community health and safety programming to provide programs and services to those experiencing impacts of COVID through support
So there
services.
was one, yeah, it was one, I think it's a couple more further on where it was like several different areas, not specific which program.
Yeah, Vicky, I know which slide you're talking about. Amber, it's the one about mayor and council requirements. I think
Yes.
that's
Oh, okay. Pardon my scroll. Hopefully I'm not making anybody motion sick. It is right here. This one?
Yes, exactly. So the second bullet point where it says invest funds with an eye towards long-term investments, I wasn't quite sure if you meant invest funds or if that was kind of investing in our community in a broad sense.
Investing in our community in a broad sense. So really looking for how can we spend these dollars to both have immediate but also long-term impacts.
Thank you. Perfect. Appreciate that.
Yeah, good question.
Okay. And then we have a question that was partially answered. So I'm going to share the non-answered portion. So we have a comment saying the lack of affordable housing inventory is a huge issue in our community. What will be the process to apply for Housing Cooperative Development Fund monies?
So to be clear, and are we asking for what is the process to apply for this, to be a partner in this particular category, or if you become a partner, what is the process for direct recipients to apply?
That I don't know. Maggie, would you like to jump in?
Hi, yes. So affordable housing is a huge issue, and I don't really see any funds available in this grant for acquisition, rehab, and or construction of affordable housing units, other than, you know, very specific monies for youth and, you know, transitional housing, etc., and manufactured home. But the trust fund, I'm wondering, is that meant to be for this? And if so, I don't see that there is a way to apply for it. I guess I'm maybe not understanding the intent of this program is to create housing trust funds, those established by city, county, or state. So how trust funds are usually governmental type of funding. So is there money that we can access? Why is this part of the grant? I guess that's my question. I'm kind of not understanding if there is an opportunity to apply for these funds through this grant or to somehow get these funds. I don't know.
No, that's a great question. And Maggie, I don't know that we have any of our housing and community development subject matter experts on the phone, our reps from within the city. But let us follow up.
Could I follow up on that?
Is there somebody? Yeah.
Yeah, this is David Wall. I have a similar question to Maggie's. And in fact, I was referred to this by Ann Chineka at Housing and Community Development. One of the questions I have is, will these funds be available for specific affordable housing projects? And I think that's, Maggie was trying to get at a sort of similar question. So we're an affordable housing developer. We've got one project that's nearly complete, another we're going to start early next year. And we've done a lot of work with housing and community development. I'm curious whether the either small scale senior youth housing or the cooperative development fund is for specific housing development projects. I'm particularly the fund looks more like it's funding a source for that will then provide funding for specific projects, but I'm just not entirely sure what you all mean by this. And I will
correct. It's the latter is what it is intended for, but let me get with our housing and community development team to provide further clarification on this, that we can provide both directly to you, David and Maggie, but also to the overall applicant pool by way of the website.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And David and Maggie, just to be sure, have you registered with us so that we can send you an email?
Yes, I have.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, yes, I think I have to, and if not, I think Gigi Aldridge has all.
Gigi Aldridge. Okay, perfect. We will follow up and better define that.
Thank you.
Any other additional questions, Jasmine, in the chat?
I've got, can an organization submit more than one application?
Yes, you may.
That is the last of the questions that I see that Johanna did not answer.
Okay. We have a couple of minutes left. If there are any additional questions, if you could raise your hand so we can see how many we have and who to call on, or add your question to the chat.
There was a question on the 1221 session. That will be the same as this presentation, correct?
Yes, so the content, the PowerPoint deck is going to be the same. I anticipate that there might be different questions that are asked, right? Because it's just a different group of people. So there may be towards the end a different conversation that could be beneficial to those that are on the same meeting. But yeah, the content that we'll be delivering by way of PowerPoint will be the same. Any other additional questions in the chat? I don't see any hands up. All right. Well, with that, then I think we'll call it. I so appreciate you all attending. We look forward to seeing your proposals and ideas as to where we can help resource the needs of our community. I appreciate it. And again, don't hesitate to reach out by way of email, our phone line, to ask questions and get assistance. Thank you all. Have a great evening and happy holidays.